Should the clave affect the way you dance to salsa music? Well, in this video, we're going to examine that very question, so stay tuned. And welcome to Salsa Goals, where we break down salsa music and dance concepts so that you can build up a strong foundation on the dance floor. So if you have goals when it comes to salsa dancing, then be sure to subscribe for the latest videos. Now, in the last 4 parts of this video series, we learned just how much the clave rhythm affects the music. But although the clave is super important for salsa musicians, is it just as important for salsa dancers? Well, that depends on who you ask, because there are many theories out there on how the clave should affect the way you dance. And since this issue is so subjective and open to interpretation, please keep in mind that these are all just theories and opinions. Also, remember this: although it is possible to rationalize a theory about the clave and dancing so that it makes sense, that doesn't mean that it was originally intended that way. So, despite what some famous salsa dancing instructors might say, and despite what even some of the original New York City Palladium era mambo dancers may have said, it might be good to go back even further to the dance of the Cuban son for a better idea of the original purpose for the timing of the stepping pattern. After all, that's where the basic salsa stepping sequence originally came from. If we can do that, then, like detectives, we might find clues about the original relationship between the clave and the dance. So let's take a look at 2 things, starting with 1. The clave and timing. Remember that both the clave and the basic salsa stepping pattern take 2 whole measures of music, or 8 beats of music, to complete. But while salsa dancers step on 6 out of those 8 beats, the clave rhythm only hits 5 of those 8 beats. This means that the basic steps of the salsa stepping pattern and the beats of the clave rhythm don't really match up unless some type of special adjustment is made. So when many modern salsa dancers talk about dancing on clave, they don't necessarily mean matching their steps exactly to the clave rhythm. So what might they really mean? First, remember that many salsa dancers usually choose between 2 main timings, either on 1 or on 2. When executing the basic salsa stepping pattern, an on-1 dancer will change the direction that they're moving in after taking a long step on either beat 1 or on beat 5, while an on-2 dancer might take that same long step on either beat 2 or beat 6. This long step is also known as the break step. But some claim that by taking that break step on beat number 2, the dancer is thereby dancing on clave, because the 2 side of the clave also starts on beat number 2 for a 2-3 clave, or on beat number 6 for a 3-2 clave, and therefore the dancer is making a major change of body movement on what some consider to be the strongest beat in the clave rhythm. But this theory might not make complete sense to everyone, because it basically ignores the corresponding break step that the dancer takes on the 3 side of the clave. Also, some have suggested that a 2-3 clave direction means that you should dance with on-2 timing, but if the clave direction is 3-2, then that means you should dance with on-1 timing. Why? Because of the pattern of the bass tumbao? Well, as we saw in the previous video, that's not necessarily the case. But when it comes to that theory, here is one possible way of rationalizing it so that it makes logical sense. The first strike of a 3-2 clave falls on beat number 1, and the last strike will fall on beat number 7. Likewise, when dancing on 1, the dancer's first step will land on beat number 1, and the last step of the pattern will land on beat number 7. Therefore, both the steps of the stepping pattern and the beats of the clave rhythm seem to fit together like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, because they begin and end at the same time. In the same way, the first strike of a 2-3 clave is on beat number 2, while the last strike is on beat number 8. Therefore, when dancing on 2, and not with the modern New York on-2 salsa timing, but rather with the classic mambo timing, also known as power 2, then the dancer's first step will fall on beat number 2, while the last step of the pattern will fall on beat number 8. Again, since the clave and the dancer's stepping pattern both start and end at the same time, then the timing of the step seemingly fits with the clave, like pieces of a puzzle. So this explanation might make sense, but was that likely the original intention? Well, remember that the original way of dancing on 2 to the Cuban son was called contratiempo, while the equivalent of on-1 timing was called a tiempo. Depending on which part of the island they were from, some Cuban dancers apparently preferred contratiempo timing, while others preferred a tiempo timing. but the clave direction really didn't seem to determine which of those timings the dancer used. In fact, even if the song had a 3-2 clave, some Cuban son dancers still seem to take the break step on beat number 2 by dancing contratiempo. But also, the names of these two timings can indicate what the original basis for them was. In other words, if a dancer used a tiempo timing, this meant that the dominant foot, or the foot that the dancer takes the break step with before returning to the center, marked beats 1, 3, 5, and 7. In fact, a tiempo literally means on time, which makes sense because the a tiempo dancer was marking the odd-numbered strong beats, or the core beats, that make up the half-note metronome-like pulse of the rhythm. On the other hand, the dominant foot of the contratiempo dancer marked beats 2, 4, 6, and 8. This also makes sense because contratiempo literally means against time, and the dancer was marking the even-numbered weak beats that contrasted with the strong core beats of the pulse. The pulse and the clave are rhythms that are related to each other, as mentioned in part 1 of this video series. So by stepping on the beats of the pulse, the dancer was already indirectly in tune with the clave. But the names a tiempo and contratiempo seem to indicate that each timing was directly related to the pulse. The dancer's dominant steps were either in sync with the pulse or they contrasted with it. So although many dancers today try to use the clave to justify a particular timing, it doesn't seem like that was necessarily the original intention in the dance of the Cuban son. So the clave might not really dictate whether we should use on 1 or on 2 timing. But was there another area that the clave might actually have influenced? And how can we apply all this on the dance floor? Well, stay tuned for the next part of this video series because it's about to get even more interesting. And until next time, stay safe, stay connected to the music, and above all, keep dancing salsa.